You are now listening to SOPHISTICULTURE, a podcast by OBSCURAE Productions. If you enjoy this episode, please consider buying us a coffee. Your support helps us continue bringing you our coverage and episodes, including the podcast, our articles, and our TikToks. The link is in the podcast description. Thanks in advance. Dr. Sarah.
Hello.
We're at the nail salon.
Yes, we are.
And I'm hoping to discuss with you the business of prints.
Lovely.
So you know a lot of stuff about how, and I'm not quite sure where to start, because up until 1996, really what we're talking about is someone that was operating within the system that existed.
Yes.
Do you have any context to prior to the break from Warner in terms of specifically how he broke how things worked? Like, business-wise, I think other than the rate at which he was releasing albums,
I think prior to breaking up with Warner's, what was extraordinary about him is when you look at his story in the context of his background. This is a young boy who basically grew up in an extremely dysfunctional home. His parents were very musical. His mother was a singer. His father was a jazz pianist, an extremely good jazz pianist. But he was such a difficult and cruel man. So he used to actually. He was quite disparaging towards Prince when he used to play the piano, and at one point he actually refused to teach him how to play certain things. And then when Prince was really successful, he wanted to sort of own a lot of that success. And I think what happened, and he actually had to, his mother chucked him out of the house when he was 12, and he had to actually live with friends. He was extremely talented, desperate to make it, as in absolutely desperate. So he actually had a band with the son of the family who took him in. I think it was called Champagne.
Slay.
And they were doing quite well locally. But in the end, when he was offered to actually sort of develop his career on his own, he dumped them. So there was a sense of blinded ambition from a very young age, and it was quite ruthless. He was so gifted that when they tried to negotiate his contract at Warner's, he basically said that he has to have absolute rights on what songs get produced, how they're produced, how they're mixed, everything. And it was incredibly unusual to give this untested young talent all of this power. They did it because they knew that he was so very, very, very talented. So even though he was under a Warner's contract, everything, including the negotiation for the money to make Purple Rain, everything was done in an extremely unusual way. And he had a ton of power. That
I was going to say, that's a really good point.
Yes.
So that is something that he innovated on. Do you remember at that time, knowing of many pop acts, I will say maybe necessarily, you had your James Browns and stuff, who were writing and producing everything on the album.
Yes.
Stevie Wonder, people who were just like all-in-one people.
Yes.
But in that specific generation, I know Stevie was slightly older than Prince,
yes.
or maybe he just got there sooner, I can't remember.
Yes.
But in terms of that, can you remember anyone else at that era being that holistically involved? Because I don't know, did Stevie Wonder do his own
not in the same way,
or his own like concepts? Because I don't remember his albums being particularly concept heavy. They were records, but they weren't very concept heavy. But Prince, and at the beginning Prince wasn't very concept heavy until I think Controversy.
Correct. And to be honest with you, the way he negotiated his contracts were unique, completely 100% unique.
That wasn't.
But the music wasn't. In terms of his contracts, he was very unique, groundbreaking. Everybody thought that he was asking too much, and they went back once or twice to Warner's, and eventually Warner said yes, because he was so talented and he'd already begun to make real waves, and they wanted to grab him, and he played them off against one or two other record companies.
Right.
But where his music was concerned, at that point, no, it was not unique.
No.
Soft and Wet was a bit stupid and silly and disgusting, and no, there's no need for that level of,
I mean, it birthed what ended up being the thing that worked.
Yes.
To some extent.
True, to some extent. But so the music itself was literally fusion of Rick James, James Brown, and Parliament Funkadelic.
Yes, that I know.
Now, he was naughty because even the way that he performed was a rip-off of Rick James because he used to open for him. And
then he got really mad when
Rick got very upset.
He then got mad when what's the band that he has in Purple Rain ended up jacking his thing.
I want to call them the New Revolution, but what are they called?
No,
I know what you mean.
It's new something.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
So, in terms of the business, from the very beginning, he was different.
Very different.
The
contracts were different. The way he argued for, even when he came to negotiate Purple Rain,
and that had to do with him being able to have complete creative control over the record that was delivered. Correct?
Because he did everything. They couldn't argue with him because he did everything. He played all the instruments.
Right.
He wrote it. He produced it. He did everything.
I guess what is interesting is that when he finally in 1996 is like, this whole thing is a mess.
Yes.
He says it's because things had changed since the original contract and he was doing even more of the work and he wanted that to reflect in the contract. I remember him saying quite clearly in one of the interviews, he said, I understand what they do, I'm not taking away from their work, but if I'm doing more than half of the work, I should be getting something that reflects that.
Correct.
Which is where the original issue came in, which was interesting because I feel, and this is not to denigrate Prince, and this is not to start harping on what happened, may he rest in peace, but it seems like a lot of his career was the very exception he was asking for to begin with. Even Purple Rain. Can you tell the story of Purple Rain? Because I can't remember exactly what it was. The terms of that were different.
He wanted 1 million, if I remember correctly. And he wanted to have a say on everything, on the script. So he wanted creative control, and he wanted the money, and he didn't want anyone telling him what to do. And he wanted to direct. Or have a huge part in the direction. And they fought him like crazy, but because he'd already been a golden goose to them, they decided to go along with it. Now, no one at that point thought that made any sense because he was totally untested. He'd never done anything in a movie.
He hadn't made a film.
Ever. But he'd already done so much that was so extraordinary that they kind of just went along with it, and yet again they took a risk, and yet again it was worth the risk. So I think if there's one thing I would say, and I think it comes from the fact that I think he's probably neurodivergent and on the spectrum, and incredibly focused, almost obsessive, and extremely talented, phenomenally talented and able, and a very, very hard-working person. And every time someone took a risk on him, they ended up having such incredible results. So he ended up being unique in so many ways because he was groundbreaking so many rules of the industry, if you like, at the time. And it was the money from Purple Rain, really, that built Paisley Park.
Oh, yep.
And it's very telling that wasn't built in LA or anywhere. That was built in Minneapolis because that was his home.
Shout out to Tim Walls.
Yes. That was his home. That's where he felt comfortable. That's where he felt he could manage things. And he was hoping to create a kind of center for people to come out to Minneapolis because he didn't want to live in LA, which wasn't really his town. And again, I think that's part of the neurodivergent part of him.
Yeah, it was like he said the cold keeps all the bad people out. Yeah. I think it was so true.
It was so true. And
not that it stops London.
For many years, nobody even saw what the inside of Paisley Park looked like, and he only showed it to the people who were going to rent spaces, so bands and people. And
so it was a business, really. Again, another business.
Another business. His home he lived there, and it was beautifully decorated, like with all of memorabilia from his different albums and pictures of him, and it was beautiful and iconic thing. And he had a whole section with tailors, like proper tailors who used to make his costumes and his shoes, and I think the shoes were made in LA. I think he had a cobbler in LA who had already done the wooden casting of his feet and everything, and he needed
very specific ones,
correct. And I think he needed the platforms because he was so short. But
I don't know. I think in 2024, if he'd come out, we would have loved a Short King.
Yeah.
We would have loved that.
Do
you know a Short King? You don't know that meme.
No, I don't. I don't know that meme. Oh my God.
It's the whole thing. It's like, we love Short Kings. Shout out to the Short Kings. I think we would have been fine with that.
No, I think he...
But also it was part of an androgynous wave in the 80s, wasn't it? It was part of like a vibe. It was kind of cool to be rejecting the masculinity of the 70s.
Absolutely, and I think the reason why I look back in those early years and I'm so impressed, and it's amazing, it's an incredible story, but the reason why I also feel so much pain is that now we know that he had this, and again I think it's part of his neurodivergence, he had this awful social anxiety, which is what people used to call his shyness. And the reason why he appeared so confident and so out there on stage is that he was absolutely patched up with fentanyl.
It's interesting that that's what it took for him to fulfill the journey of what he was setting up business-wise. Because the thing with Prince, the reason I wanted to have this conversation is I feel that there is an aspect to Prince that's not talked about. Everyone talks about the genius. Everybody talks about how good a savant, how much of a savant he was, how prolific he was. But no one talks about the infrastructure that he built by being a little bit able, because of his talent, to take risks no other artist could.
Correct.
And one of the risks he took, of course, it was in 1996. And that was a big deal. And no one gives him his flowers for that in a real way, because what he started there is having ripple effects in my career in 2024.
Correct.
And so I wanted to try and get to the heart of why he felt specifically, like, what first off, your experience of it was in real time.
Yes.
Because I wasn't there for most of it. 1996, I just got here.
Yes.
Late. I got here late in 1996.
Yes.
But also the other thing is, I wanted to get a sense of why he was allowed to break so many rules in an industry that was pre-internet.
Yes.
And, there were many talented artists, Stevie and everyone. Yeah. But there was something that kept working with him. And I think, in my opinion, my thesis is that he was far more business-minded than, like, some artists wait their whole lives.
Yes.
And they don't ever set up Paisley Park.
Correct.
They don't sit and work out which tailor and which cobbler they're going to, like, this is all worked out for them.
And I think the one thing I'd say about him is I think this really harsh start to life made him super hungry.
It was, and in a way that no other artist had been prior, and very few have been since.
And absolutely, and he had an ethos, right? He had a sort of a way of seeing things where he felt that if something was available, he deserved it as much as anyone else. So, for example, when he was starting out and he was getting a little bit of traction in the music business, he would sit. He reminds me so much, and in fact, I don't know if this person was inspired by him or whether it's just the same kind of personality. But Chris Martin of Coldplay did the same thing. Lists and lists and lists of magazines and outlets and so on, and phoning them relentlessly. And there's one particular phone call which I thought typifies it all.
It was the Rolling Stone, wasn't it?
It was either Rolling Stone or Empire or Ebony, but he phoned them and he said, "I deserve to be on the cover."
Yeah, and he wasn't wrong.
No, he said, "I deserve to be on the cover. You've never put me on the cover, and I deserve to be on the cover." And he didn't stop until they put him on the cover.
You see, there is something, I think that's the same kind of person that can go, actually, I don't need a label. In 96, I don't need and I know there were other artists, but none at the scale of Prince.
No.
Like Taylor Swift, she had a chance to do this when she left Big Machine. And instead signed to Universal, which stayed for her.
Yes.
But it was interesting to me that at the height of Prince, just post Diamonds and Pearls, he was happy to jump, really jump. And I think you're right. It leads back to that original approach to the career, which was very, I don't want to say cutthroat because that makes it seem in some way toxic. But I mean,
I would say focused and determined.
Determined, really genuinely determined, in a way that nothing was going to, no move was immoral.
Correct.
But it was all based on what was fair. So, now that we've discussed how we got to 1996, i.e., from the very beginning, there was a sense of rule breaking and no allegiance necessarily to his early band, but certainly to getting the
New
vision.
Power Revolution.
No, that was with Diamonds and Pearls. I'm thinking of the Champagne I'm referring to in this conversation, but in Purple Rain, New Time. Something.
Yes. Time with the other band.
That's the time. The time
with the other band.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, not his band.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
New Power. Yeah, no.
Yes.
I was
sorry.
I know I wasn't clear. I was referring to The Time were the ones that then jacked his style in the movie.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. He stole from Rick James, and then The Time stole from him.
And you know he was producing The Time.
No, I know. So in hindsight, he was like making fun of himself.
I know.
So
and they were all his best friends, also from school.
So everybody did end up coming out.
Pretty much.
It just had to be done in a way. And I think we've had this discussion. Sometimes there are sacrifices people have to make in terms of how they start so that everybody can come up.
Yes.
Because there's just certain ways that places are going to interact with you.
Yeah.
So we started with a very unconventional contract for The Time.
Correct.
Not The Time, but for The Time.
Yes, for the time period.
The time period.
Yes.
And then, Purple Rain was a very unconventional thing for an artist to do.
Very.
Which then...
An untested...
it was almost like he was one-upping MJ. MJ was like, I'm going to make a movie as a music video, and he's going to go, I'm going to make a movie.
Well, he was in intense competition with Michael Jackson at the time, and Michael Jackson, of course, was at his peak.
Yeah.
And so he was in intense competition with him, and I think he always felt that he was sort of in the shadows.
Yeah.
At that point.
I think Purple Rain was the emergence out of the shadows, quite.
True, and in a way, when you look back on it, it doesn't make any sense that he felt that level of competition, because Michael was producing the kind of music that is so ubiquitous and can easily be adopted.
He was out of the Motown machine. He'd basically been trained by Berry Gordy.
Yeah, and appealed to a wide range of listeners, whereas at that time, Prince's music was for a very specific niche audience, because the language sometimes was really off, and that the music would be a bit quirky.
But do you feel also, this is just a side tangent, do you also feel like Purple Rain was him trying not to be as esoteric, to try, if he was going to go full, if you can do Thriller, I can do Purple Rain.
100%.
If you can do Quincy Jones, down the middle, Motown, cookie cutter to some extent, music, so can I.
Well, and he was right. It was an incredible success.
Yeah.
I can't remember where it was that I saw the advert, but I was at uni because I saw the advert and went and saw it on my own in the cinema in Harare in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
And I think I must have gone back and seen it twice more.
Wow.
And it was so impressive.
Yeah.
The music was crazy because it was When Doves Cry. And
had you been into him by then? Had so-and-so given you the cassettes at that point?
I think it was, yes, but I didn't even know it was him.
Yes, so that had happened.
That happened, but I didn't even know that was him. That was 83, I got that Christmas cassette. And I didn't even know...
Imported from America?
From Canada. And I had
from Canada, was it?
Idea. The songs that 1999 was on it, and it was I loved that song. I used to play it on repeat and had no idea who it was.
That's so crazy.
And then years later, and it was really at the time of Purple Rain onwards that I really, really started following.
Yeah, in earnest.
Yeah.
And you saw him on tour. Which tour?
It was the Diamonds and Pearls tour, and it was 1992.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always think that Diamonds and Pearls came out in 1996 because I think the moment I was born it was there. So I keep forgetting, but it was 92.
Yes, because that cassette in the car.
Yeah.
In the days we had tapes in the car.
It was such that thing raised me. So we get to 96. At this point, this guy is very used to being told, this isn't how things are done, this isn't how things are done, and he's done it anyway and succeeded.
Correct.
So
many times.
So it doesn't scare him.
No.
The idea of going, that isn't done. You're a big recording artist. You should stay with a label. And he goes, don't tell me what to do.
Yes. And also, it's ridiculous that so much of my money goes to people who are not contributing anything to the product.
I mean, at that point, he has Paisley Park, which is basically
a recording studio.
It's a full record label.
Yep, and
it's doing music videos.
Yep,
it's doing Diamonds and Pearls was shot there, right?
I believe it. Yes, I believe
do you know
so.
how I know?
Yeah.
Every video that's filmed in Paisley Park has the vibe of being filmed in Paisley Park.
Yes.
You just know.
It's true. And
They're all different, but you just know.
And he had two stages. He had the main stage, which was literally like an arena stage almost.
Yeah.
And not arena size seating, but arena size stage. Almost. And then he had something that was literally like Ronnie Scott's.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, God. Now I'm going to get upset because I can never see Prince perform at Paisley Park. Like, But the reason I say this is we get to 96. He is not scared of defying expectations.
No.
In fact, he's so not scared that he gets on stage and he's like,
yes,
all of this can go in the bin.
Yes. And he fought hard at that point to disengage.
Yeah.
And it was bruising, and that's why the records he produced, he used to, even in interviews, he'd have the word slave written on his face, and it was bruising.
You can tell that it was something that was rather traumatic because it was the first time that he was being told no and it was sticking.
No, and it was sticking and it was hard, and at times the fight was on his own, and also, you know, I think along the way, because he was a tough person to work with. So I think there are times, isn't it, that you can look back and you can think, you know, if you handle things differently, do you get a different result? But to be honest, particularly in the music business, I think people... and if there's a lot of money to be made, the fight gets nastier.
Right.
And also, to be fair, Warner's had taken God knows how many risks.
Right, and a lot of financial risks.
Yeah. At a time that other people would have did turn him away.
Yeah, and there is that thing, of course, the record label side of things where everybody goes, it all gets shaped down later.
I know.
There's the other side of the record label thing where they go, well, we invest a lot with no return at the beginning.
Yes.
So the idea is it's kind of like a bank loan.
Well, it's like a VC. It's like being a VC, isn't
Exactly. What I find predatory about it is that there are always term limits to being a VC.
Correct.
And if you want it to be a VC type thing, put it in the contract that you own a percentage of the IP. Don't say you own 90 or 85% of the entire IP because you invested in the beginning. No VC owns 85% of an upcoming business and all assets.
And the name.
That's predatory.
It is predatory.
And that's because they know that most artists going in are one of two people. They don't have their own, or they believe that pursuing art is going to inherently put them under a bridge.
And also, they know that at that stage, the artist is desperate.
Right.
So it's a bit like buying a property when the seller is a distressed seller.
Yes.
And just getting the most insane conditions.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
So many things happened after he left Warner, including him returning to Warner or just before he died. But I wanted to highlight everything that happened with Shaka Khan, and Sly and the Family Stone, and also just the slaving stuff, and then the internet.
Yes, he really tried to reclaim his early history. So Sly and the Family Stone was iconic for him because these are the concerts he used to break in through the fence in Minneapolis when he had no money and he was very young.
Wow.
And they'd come on tour. He and his friends would just cut through the
That's very small.
The metal,
that's very
wire fence.
Midwest. It's very Midwest.
Cut through the wire fence and go and watch these
slang.
And he was very inspired by them. Parliament Funkadelic as well.
I wanted to ask you, where were you when 1996 hit and this happened with Warner? And
you were born.
Yes. What proximity did you have to it as a story? Were you paying attention at the time?
I was.
I can imagine you were.
But it felt chaotic because he started to try and do something online.
And 96?
Just as the internet was opening up.
About.
Yeah. He tried to sell online. He tried to go totally independent and sell online.
But the market wasn't there yet.
Just wasn't there yet. But he did try.
He was
had
like
a
10
website.
years early to iTunes.
He had a club. He had a subscription service. He had all sorts of things that he tried so hard. But at that point, he was muzzled. So he'd do really weird things, like he'd have interviews where he'd refuse to speak.
Oh yeah, was that 96 when he was wearing the dark veil?
Yeah, and he would refuse to speak, or and then later when he would hold interviews, he'd have slave written on his face and so on. And then he did that amazing album, Emancipation.
Yes. I remember the interview with Arsenio Hall after Emancipation came out.
Wasn't that amazing?
That's a brilliant...
It's such a good...
album and a brilliant interview, because I think that was the interview, the very special interview, keep an eye if you need to. It was the interview where he had, what's his name from Sly and the Family Stone, and Shaka Khan.
Yes,
and
but he started producing them.
That's what I was going to say.
And Mavis Staples.
And Mavis Staples, representing them in...
and you know why? Because Mavis used to be someone he used to listen to when he was younger. He was trying to reclaim all the people, like Sly and Mavis and Shaka are all from the early days.
Yes.
Right? So he was
of course Shaka Khan was the one that re-recorded I Feel For You.
And the reason he was supporting them is they were being ignored by the music industry, and he wanted to support them.
Yeah.
There was always a sense of altruism to some, not always, but there is a huge sense of altruism to some of his work.
Yeah, you notice it because as the time went on and the albums came out, new people joined the band, and the old people go on to do, the duo, the amazing duo that ended up producing for Janet Jackson and everybody.
Oh yes, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Yes, Terry Lewis. Yes. Once they had their wings and they could fly, the next group of people come in. Even to the very end, he was the one that first found Lizzo.
Yes.
And
look at the support he gave Judith Hill
and Janelle Monáe. There was just
amazing.
there are and there were very few artists who understood how to support other artists, not just in terms of let's do a collab, but in terms of actual concrete business support.
Yeah, I think he began to see himself almost like the grandfather or the father
back in '96
of like new talent. Yeah.
Oh, you mean like as we went further?
And I think it was more like talent that he related to, like Janelle, for example, which he felt maybe would be ignored by the music industry.
And it was being, to be fair, she did get found by I think it was Big Boy, one of the members of Outkast.
Oh, right.
I think that's the person that originally discovered her. I think someone's going to come into the comments and be very mad at me, but I think that's where she started, and then Prince eventually found her. I mean, you see so much of Prince all over Janelle.
Yeah, very much. I mean,
I think of Tightrope. I think of the Suits. I think of the dance stuff. Make Me Feel.
Yes, and also when we went to her concert recently.
Yeah.
When was that?
Like a month or two ago.
If you noticed the horns that she uses, that's Prince.
Very, very
That is Prince.
I mean, the whole of Dirty Computer to me is an album that's an ode to Prince. I almost thought he wrote on it. Turns out he didn't, but it feels like a record that
there is one of her records where you hear him in the backing.
American.
Yeah, because he literally does her backing vocals.
I'm sure he's on that.
You can hear it.
I'm sure.
I thought he wrote it. I think
she said he wasn't on the record, and so I believe her. Yeah,
that's really weird.
I know, because I'm sure I'm hearing him on American. So yes, you can tell I know that album back to front.
Yeah.
But you're saying at the time it was quite hectic. When do you
felt chaotic?
And then after that, I believe there was just this general consensus press-wise that this guy had kind of quote-unquote fallen off, or he was in his imperial era. And I
remember the record companies wanted him to be punished, so they wanted him to end up like disappearing into oblivion.
So so you're saying basically that they kind of forced his fall off, because I feel that it was premature to say that in '96 he was heading into his imperial era.
They wanted that. They wanted
imperial years. That's what it's called.
They wanted him to be punished. Because they were trying to teach him a lesson because they were scared that he's setting a bad example by showing that you can leave a record company and you can still do really, really well.
Yeah.
And they didn't want that as a precedent.
Oh yeah.
And so they did everything they could to sort of try and diminish his star, so his opportunities and all the rest of it. But he was determined. He
was still a major touring act. He still had
tried everything.
And I remember, and what no one talks about, everyone talks about Taylor Swift releases so many different versions of her album, and such and such, so and so, they're packaging their album with tickets. All of that started with Prince.
Yeah.
all of that as tactics to get onto the chart. The idea of bundling ticket sales with an album,
Correct.
that was Prince. The idea of releasing multiple versions of the album in order to chart better was Prince. These were all tactics he was pioneering.
Correct.
And he pioneered, of course, sale of records online, sale of merch, fan club online.
Correct.
And he's never spoken of in those terms. We all talk about how great he was on guitar and how amazing he was as a performer. And oh my God, Purple Rain. But so much of the way the industry works today was in response to things he found that worked.
Correct.
And again, I feel no one gives him that credit, because then it would be giving credit to someone who fobbed off the industry.
That is the problem.
But the industry copied him for years.
Well, the industry was inspired by him for a long, long time, even after he left. They just didn't want to give him the credit, because then they would basically be saying that if you've got the right combination of talents, you don't need them.
You don't need them. And didn't that end up proving to be right?
Well, it is now.
Because that's exactly where I want to get to.
Yeah, you can see it now. I mean, there's loads of people coming up. And then if you look at the phenomenon now, add in social media, which he was just kind of at the edge of. You know, all these current artists for whom everything starts on social media. So it has nothing to do with record companies. I think people then end up getting these contracts because they don't know what to do next.
Oh yeah. And also because there is a ceiling beyond which the labels will make sure, and it's not a malicious thing, it's their business interest. If you think that you can do it without them, and then you're right, what does that mean about these multi-billion they have an obligation to their shareholders to make it so that they are necessary to the building of massive careers, and they also have the connections and the scope of those connections.
And I mean, and they are quite cutthroat. I will never forget the disparaging, negative, nasty way in which Clive Davis spoke to Whitney the day she died. She came out of the swimming pool with her daughter. She was going upstairs in the Beverly Hills Hotel. He was doing an interview in the area she walked past. It looked like a lobby, but it was probably like a side area. And he had Brandy on one side and I think Jennifer Hudson on the other. And those were like his protégés at the time. And he treated Whitney like she was a used piece of...
It's just awful.
And she came out the pool with her daughter, Bobby.
May they both rest in peace.
And they were going upstairs to the room, and of course Whitney walks in, and this is Clive Davis, and then two little protégés of hers as well, Brandy and Jennifer.
Oh my gosh,
and so
Brandy.
she goes. So Whitney starts, "How wonderful to see you, and you're all here, and all this kind of very enthusiastic response."
Amazing.
And basically Clive spoke to her as if, you know, move on, you crazy woman, kind of thing. And I remember thinking, and that was the night.
Not the same Brandy that Whitney had really built up.
And that was the same night she died.
Anyway, we all know, you and I, how we feel about Clive Davis.
Yes, exactly.
We have our feelings.
But it's just the cutthroatness of the whole industry.
I think I find that attitude to be, number one that will not last very much longer, because you never know who's going to blow up again. TikTok has reinvigorated the careers of people the industry completely forgot. I'm waiting for Jessie J's moment. When TikTok finds Jessie J and actually gets this going, and it actually happens.
It's long overdue.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, by the way, everybody I think assumes that Prince would so hate TikTok. And I've always believed that if he would be like Nile Rodgers, do you remember when Nile Rodgers got on TikTok? He would have loved it.
I think he would have been one of the first people on it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And he would be finding people to headline, to open for him on tour on TikTok.
He would be running live TikToks in his concert. He was very innovative.
There'd be a Paisley Park account.
He's very innovative.
Everyone's like, so he hated the exploitation. It's like, you don't understand. He was the guy that was trying to start the sale of music online. He would have been the first person going into negotiations, flying off to China to have negotiations about how to get artists paid more on TikTok.
Absolutely.
Like that's the kind of he was like, because I think people just see him as being this kind of elitist genius auteur, and they don't look at the pattern of behavior.
Correct.
Anyway, I keep getting back to that point, but what I did want to ask, what I want to end it on is, I myself happen to make music for a living, just barely. And I remember being 15, really getting into doing this. and you handing me this man's history and this man's legacy, and it was only about 2 or 3 years before he passed away.
Yes.
And you had handed me this history that had happened before I got here.
Yes.
And it allowed me to make choices so far ahead, that have now proven to be very good choices.
Good.
You know, I'm looking at, for instance, Chaperone, who did it the way you're supposed to do it. The labels find you, you sign, you go, you become, and then she is forgotten, left behind. She ends up getting dropped from the contract, moving back home, and then she builds it independently. It becomes big enough, then she gets signed again. And Jessie J was the same. She had a record deal that fell through. Gaga was the same. Record deal fell through, pushed, worked hard, and then they sign again. And what I'm not seeing is people who start independent, gain attention from the industry, and choose to stay independent. The only avenue, the only genre that's still doing that is hip-hop. The only genre that's doing that is hip-hop. Because you can pretty much get away with having a career in hip-hop and rap, but with pop music, it's like everyone hits a ceiling and they have to sign, they have to sign, they have to sign. And I'm yet to see people really go for it. And I think it has to do with whether people feel they have that leverage. That's what I'm decoding from what you're telling me about this guy, is that he felt he had the leverage even at 19.
Correct.
To ask for what he wanted.
And he was determined to the point of getting quite stroppy.
And the day that an artist in this industry insists on remaining independent, that's doors for Universal, for Warner, for everybody. That's it. Because you can prove the point, you know. And God, maybe it was naive. I was really hoping Taylor would do it.
Yeah, I am disappointed with Taylor because I think that she has a father who was in banking and a Goldman Sachs person who actually set up a label to be able to support her early on, working with someone in the music business. She learned all the tips and tricks and all of those things, and you do expect that she would somehow move it on to another level. But I think he was much more entrepreneurial, much more business-minded. I think she's just simply wanting to make music and make a life out of it. Whereas it was all about owning different things in life. He reminds me of that line that Michelle Obama said in the latest the Democratic National Congress, where she said, "No one has a monopoly on what it is to be an American." And Prince, his ethos was, no one has a monopoly on what it is to be successful.
Amen.
So he would, if it was magazines, he was into it. If it was records, if it was music, if it was films, if it was, nobody has a monopoly on what you can do to be successful. And that's how he lived his whole life.
Yeah. And so I would ask the final question, which is that you handed this man's legacy to me, and it has really served me well as a musician. Not that I'm anywhere as talented on guitar as he is. I just know a couple of chords.
Well, you have your talents in your areas, for sure.
I have a couple aces up my sleeve.
You do.
What I will say is, what do you think? I know it's a very silly question to ask, because who knows? But what do you think he'd be doing right now in this arena? What advantages would he be taking if he had not signed to Warner later in the career? Because again, he was too early to being independent. That was really the tragedy, is he was just maybe 5 years too early to being able, like, he passed away too early to really take advantage of the current situation. What do you think he'd do in this situation?
I think he wanted to be a teacher. He wanted to be a mentor. He wanted to be an example. And I can see him continuing to support very talented artists who maybe need a leg up. But I think that one of the things that, because he was business-minded, so everything that he did for you came at a price. But I think that he would have been a true sort of father or grandfather of many artists, with the aim of showing people how you can do this thing without being sucked into the corporate world. I think that would have been his thing. So he might have set up, for example, a tour company that you can just rent.
Yeah.
You know,
as it is, there's so much that he set up that people were using in pay-as-you-go.
Correct. But so, and he might have even set up like a blueprint. So, for example, you're an artist, and what do you need? You need recording facilities. You need a band who's incredibly good at playing music. You need maybe some help with some of the composition. And he probably would have set up an alternative to Ticketmaster, and he would have probably set up his own relationships with arenas around the world, and he would have probably.
Can you imagine?
And he would have probably set up a touring company that you could just rent.
Yes.
Right?
I think these
so
are
now
all...
that becomes a totally independent ecosystem.
Yes. And a competitive one, so that they are forced now not to be monopolies, and they have to compete properly.
And they would all copy him. They'd all suddenly do the same thing.
Yeah.
You'd suddenly have Universal has its own touring company that you can rent, and Warner will have its own touring company that you can rent, and Sony would have its own, exactly.
As it is.
Yeah.
What did all the big majors do after COVID? They all went and bought themselves independent labels.
Yeah.
So AWOL is now owned by Sony, and the Orchard, I think, is now owned by someone else.
Because they just copy.
So they just went and bought all of the independent avenues.
And he would be setting the scene, and they'll just be copying.
So I think that's the work that needs to be continued, in my opinion.
Yes.
I'm nowhere near as big as Prince, and but I see it as being something that needs to be done to save the industry. And you're going, but does the industry need saving? It seems fine. I don't think it's fine for the artist. I'm seeing Hosier cancelling tour dates because he's overdone it on his voice, because they won't let him stop touring.
Yeah.
I'm seeing Chappell Roan having breakdowns on TikTok because she's being approached and not protected on the streets.
And they did it. They did it with Adele. Mariah. They just because they see them as commodities, they don't see them as. And they've got this thing about, if you don't, totally exploit your current popularity, you don't know, whether it's going to hang around. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
Look at Celine Dion. She just when they needed a break. If she needed to go and see her ENT surgeon, she did. In 6 months, if she needs to cancel a concert, but even she at one point overdid it.
Yeah, it needs to be something. I think this idea that art must be a sacrifice pushes a lot of artists to listen to that level of pushing.
Correct.
And I don't think it's wise. I don't think it aids the longevity of artists. I think it's part of what aids the end.
Correct.
And so it actually is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Correct.
But I think that's the work that needs. I think that's what needs to happen from someone that makes records. I'm going, there needs to come a point. Certainly the Swifties and all of the people that are dying to get tickets on Ticketmaster are going to love you saying that, because I think there needs to be competition.
Yes.
These things are monopolies right now.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I wanted to add at the end is that the same consolidation and lack of choice is happening in the film industry now too.
Oh, wow.
But I will say it's so interesting that in the same way that there needs to be more competition in music with these touring companies and these production companies, there is also with the touring companies, it needs to be with the production companies. They're all of them buying each other up, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
But there's still more competition in film than there is in music.
Right.
Because even if you go indie, you don't have the same opportunity of having as much support in music. So say you go with like Rough Trade or one of the smaller labels, you're not as supported and in a bigger career. But if you go with an indie production company and then you hit it big, you are supported to some extent.
Yes.
And you there is the infrastructure there, and multiple different parts of the system can come in and help you.
Yes.
It's a lot more varied.
Yes.
So I think you've made incredible points about what his impact was on it. And I think it's interesting that there's still that work to do, and what work he would be doing needs still to be completed.
Absolutely correct.
And maybe I won't have necessarily the infrastructure, but I'd love to be part of doing that.
Yes, and I think, to be honest, I think it's the next natural phase for the music industry, because it is heading towards more and more independence, because it doesn't make sense. The argument still stands, almost 20 years later.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 27, so it was 27 years ago.
27, yeah, exactly. 27 years.
So, hate to do it to you.
Actually, almost 30 years ago. The argument still stands that it makes absolutely no sense that a person brings their talent, their voice, they can mix, they can master, they can sing the backing vocals, they can play all of the instruments, they can literally do almost the whole job. And yet, they have to give money to people, many of whom have nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah. And who are doing maybe minimal fractions of the work.
Yeah.
Do you know about the Ticketmaster lawsuit?
I do, but I can't remember the details.
So there was an antitrust lawsuit going on because of how difficult it was for Swifties to get tickets to the Eras tour.
Oh, this is new.
Yeah. So there was an issue with the ticketing.
Did they sell them to corporations or something?
No, there was an issue with the way that Ticketmaster does ticketing, and it was considered to be basically they're saying that the methods that Ticketmaster uses to allocate tickets and the website that how the website works needs to be investigated and/or is fraudulent. Like there's issues.
Wow.
It was literally taken to Congress. Basically, by virtue of the Taylor Swift tickets being so difficult to get, people started looking at the same thing we've been discussing for years, which is that Ticketmaster has no real competition and they've monopolized the venues that major artists will use to tour. So something needs to be done, competition needs to be introduced, or they are going to be able to inflate the prices, the costs, and it's going to be exorbitant. Because that was one of the scandals with the Eras tour, was that there was this variable dynamic pricing.
You see?
And
if you go on the first time, it's a price, and then if you go and be back again, it's...
Well, because there was tons of demand, the price went up. And there was like 5,000 per ticket. Madness.
What?
And the reseller situation is also under question. So basically, there is conversations around this already happening, and I think you're right that there needs to be infrastructure set up outside of these systems. But I think the one thing people forget in that conversation, they go, "Oh, for indie artists," it's like, yes, but for indie artists to expand to the level that we expect of artists that are signed to a label, because I think a lot of people set up indie stuff at indie levels for indie artists that are staying at an indie level.
Correct.
And I think that's stymieing. It's creating a ceiling beyond which the only resources that exist are for people who are signed to a label. So I think that one of the people that must be involved in this process has to be someone that has been or is currently signed to a major label and a very, very big artist.
Correct.
I don't know the situation with Coldplay, but it sounds like if anybody were positioned to do this...
It has to be people like Coldplay or Arctic Monkeys or...
Arctic Monkeys less so.
Less so, but at least Chris Martin can do this because he's obsessive enough to do it.
I really do need to do a proper Coldplay deep dive because I don't know.
Are you going to get Chris on your podcast?
Imagine. I'd love to.
No, I'm serious. I really think you should get him on your podcast.
I'd love to because I also need to do my research. I need to go look up all of this because I have never really gone and checked what happened there and what that story is. I just know yellow. It was all yellow. That's all I know.
You have to. I think you'll find. Interestingly, I think you'll find that you will really vibe with Chris Martin because Chris has the obsession of Prince.
Really?
And I think either he copied him or he just by coincidence had the same determination and structure and would not take no for an answer.
Fair enough.
And that's you.
I love it. I love that attitude. And Coldplay plays stadiums. They play stadiums.
Huge arenas.
So, I mean, it's not on anyone to be the martyr of the industry.
No.
If someone just wants a chill time, I don't begrudge them that. No. Life is hard.
Of course.
And the industry's hard.
And he's a daddy.
So it's not on any one person, but someone does have to do this.
And then those people who have the courage and creativity and strength and determination can join. It can be a group thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be dumped on one person.
And I will end it on this. if this is naive, someone explain why. Because if there's something we're missing, if there's a trick we're missing, explain.
It's not at all naive. I think it's the next. You guys are Gen Zers. It's gonna be the new era.
Let's hope.
It's gonna be the new era.
I mean, with TikTok by our side, we can do anything. It sounds silly, but it's
for sure.
like it is a huge.
Politicians are on TikTok because they know where their bread is from.
I've found a platform there that I've never ever had before as an artist, and it doesn't mean that anything in my art has changed.
No,
it's just something about that algorithm has got me to the people that are looking for
It's
me.
not as interfered with. Now there's this issue right now with Pavel Durov of Telegram, and the reason why they arrested him in France, he's got 3 nationalities and one of them is French. They arrested him in France because there's information that certain people don't want disseminated on Telegram, which is being disseminated on Telegram, and they don't know how to stop it because he refuses to stop it, so they arrested him.
Oh dear.
So I think that we have to begin to.
Because I know that those have been the apps that people have used in, let's say, places of conflict currently.
Correct.
To get information out about what is going on.
Correct. And what I'm saying is...
It's a shame that people would try and sabotage those outlets.
Correct. So what I'm saying is that the only way those things become normalized is if there's groups and groups of people that team up and support that work, and it becomes the normal. It becomes the normal. And that just takes a few people.
Yep.
It just takes a few to get it up and running.
But hey, this is, I think, the bravery that I want to try and emulate. Prince didn't wait for other people to join him.
No.
And it was because he knew he could.
Yes, I mean, there's two things. If we finish off our conversation on the perfect conclusion, in my opinion,
let's do it.
It is that when he was dependent on others financially, he ended up paying a price with the constraints. When he really could fly and do innovation in a way that did not come at a cost to him was when he could fund it himself.
Yep.
So finances that do not bind you to other people, whether you make the money first and try it, or whether you find people who genuinely will support you in good faith, that seems to be the safer, better way.
And I end this by saying thank you for being that person for me, even in a small way.
My pleasure.
Because it has brought me a level of freedom in my career that I would not have had otherwise.
It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy, and it still remains that.
And I don't take that privilege for granted, and I mention it constantly because I don't want people thinking that, I'm just managing to follow my dreams. Like, I'm doing it because I'm being supported, and I'm very, very grateful.
I cannot imagine a bigger joy. It has been an absolute joy, and it remains so, and it will continue to be so. And it's exciting to see what you've done along the way and what you continue to do, and what I know is going to...
I'm having you on my podcast now.
And now
things are happening. Things are moving and shaking. You're on the pilot podcast before we go to TIFF.
And all of these films, the festivals that are recognizing your filming skills and the music and how people recognize that. And thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast.
It has been a pleasure, Dr. Sarah, as usual.
Congratulations.
And now we will have even more of a conversation, but the microphone will be off. And everybody will have to miss out on that.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mama.
Well done.
Love you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Love you too. Bye.
Indeed, that was SOPHISTICULTURE, a podcast by OBSCURAE Productions. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider buying us a coffee. Your support helps us continue bringing you our coverage and episodes, including the podcast, our articles, and our TikToks. The link is in the podcast description. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.